Om Ajnanantimirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Melitam Nena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says whenever there is a decline of dharma and a rise in adharma or unrighteousness, I incarnate myself age after age. And so we understand that the avatar, Krishna, the divine Narayan, is always incarnating into this reality whenever there is a decline of dharma. And so one of those incarnations of Krishna, one of those incarnations of Narayan is Radharaman Charan Das. Guruji has confirmed that he was an avatar of the Lord. And so he is a very, very great saint that is well known in India, but not so well known around the world. So, the funny story, the first time I met Guruji was actually in India at his ashram. So he had taken samadhi, and the first time I saw Guruji, the first time I was with him, he was also staying in this ashram of Radharaman. And so the first thing that we did, the moment that he met me, we went into the temple, and we started to sing the mantra that he gave to the world. And so ever since then, I've had a very special connection with him. And his entire life, if you want to know more about him, is in a book called The Life of Love. And this book, Guruji has given a lot of people to read, especially those living in the world that are preaching, that are trying to reach people and connect them to love and bhakti. He always recommends this book of Radharaman. It's called Life of Love. So if you're out in the world and you want to inspire others to come onto this path, I would definitely recommend reading that book. There's also many, many interesting stories about how he's connected to a lot of Guruji's devotees. So there was once a Russian devotee. He came during Guru Purnima, and he just wore that tilak. And he had no idea what it was. He had no idea who it belonged to. He just said, I woke up today and I felt like wearing this tilak, or I felt like shaping my tilak in this way. And the moment Guruji saw him with this tilak, he gave him the book Life of Love. And he said, read about Radharaman Charan Das. And so in that way, he is an amazing saint that many of us in Bhakti Marga are connected to. So how did his life begin? So he was born in 1853, so not even that long ago, only about 160 years ago. And he was a householder. So he had a family, he had children, and he had a wife. And he was not spiritually inclined. So whenever he would see Vaishnavas going around dancing and coming to doors, he would make fun of them. He said, what are you doing with your life? Get a job, make money. You're going around singing the name of God. You don't have anything better to do with yourself. And so all the time he would make fun of all of these Vaishnava saints. But he was exceptionally good at his duty. He was a superintendent of an entire state of India. And he was doing such a good job that all the time he was getting promoted. And so a lot of times what we see about his early life is the importance of doing our dharma in the correct way. When or if the time comes for you to give up the world and become a monk, okay, when that time comes, go into that. But as long as that's not your dharma, you have to do the duty that you've been given in this world in the correct way. The worst thing that we can do is say, you know what, I met Guruji, I'm spiritual, I'm going to go spend a few months in Bali on the beach, right? It doesn't work like that. Did Krishna tell Arjuna in the Gita, hey, Arjuna, you know what? Don't worry about fighting. drop your bow. Let's go to Bali. Let's drink some juice in the beach. Did he tell that to Arjuna? I don't think so. Not the Gita that I read. He said you have to do your duty. And you have to do it properly. And this is the grounded way of spirituality. And that's what Radharaman has taught us in his early life. And also that which Guruji teaches us all the time. He is one of the most grounded gurus you'll ever come across. And that's not so interesting for the mind, right? For the mind, we want to feel special. We want to do these amazing things. But he doesn't give us that. If he looks at us, he's like, go back to work. I would say to Guruji, can I come and spend time with you in Germany? I miss you. He's like, no. You be in New York, be in the States, carry the mission forward there. So like that, he's always pushing us to do our duty in the correct way. So in the same way, Radharaman did his duty in an amazing way. But then a day came. A day came when he realized that this path was not for him anymore. So he went to his wife, got her blessing, and then left. Right, so this is also important. If you want to become a monk or a nun, first ask the permission of your wife or husband, okay? Don't just run away. That's not good. First, get their permission, and then move forward to the next phase in your life. So in the same way, Radharaman went. He asked for permission. His wife gave it, and then he went in search for God. So the first thing that he did, where do you think the first thing he went? Where was the first place he went to after he left his home and went off to search for God? Bali. That's good. That's nice. Which deity do you think he went to? Did you say Bali or Kali? You removed the B, replaced the K, and you got it. Yeah. So when you go on the spiritual path, you need the grace of the Divine Mother. Without her grace, it's almost impossible. Because we have so many limitations, so many negative qualities, so many things in us that stop us from really moving forward. And Kali helps us to remove that. So the first thing that he went, he had no guru. He didn't even know where to find a guru. So he went to Ma and said, Ma, you have to help me to find a guru. And so he went and he did a lot of penance. He did a lot of practices for many, many, many months in the temple of Kali. Eventually, Kali came to him and he said, my son, don't worry. I have found you a guru. Go to this place on this day and he will be waiting for you. So the funny thing is that the guru that he had, he did not take any more disciples. So he said, I refuse any more disciples, any more devotees. It's like it's already too much with who I have. And so when Kali came and said, you take him, he said no. He's like, please, no, not one more devotee. And then Kali said, no, you must take him. And so he said, okay. And so he decided to take Radharaman as his disciple. So this shows one more thing. It shows that even the avatar takes the guru. Even the avatar in this incarnation takes on a guru. Does the avatar need a guru? No. Why would he need it? But why does he do it? Or why do they do it? It's to set an example for all of us that through the grace of the guru, we can move forward on our spiritual path. So in the same way, he was an avatar. He didn't need a guru. But he created this leela or play to help us understand the importance of a guru. Okay? So I really like this verse in the Gita. This is Krishna. He says, I do not reveal myself to everybody, but I cover myself with my Yog Maya. This deluded world does not recognize me as unborn and infallible. So here, Yog Maya is the Divine Mother. So without her grace, it's impossible to realize Krishna. Without her grace, it's actually impossible to find the Guru. But if you have her grace, then all things are possible. So in this way, Radharaman gets initiation from his Guru. And he only spent 2 weeks with his Guru. 2 weeks. And after that, his Guru said, okay, now you go into the world and spread Harinam. Harinam means the name of Hari, the name of the Lord. He said, now you go. What do you think Radharaman was like, yeah, sure, I'm happy, I'll go. No, he was sad. He was very sad. He said, no, Guruji, I just met you. I'm just here. Please, please, let me spend time with you. And he said, no, I've given you everything that you need. You will bring the name of Hari to so many people in this world. They'll even be speaking about you in 2023 in Germany. He didn't say that. But. And so, what do we see there? We see that actually the Guru gives you everything the first time he meets you. All of his grace is poured onto you the very first meeting. And from that moment on, it's just the journey of recognizing what he's already given you. Many of us think that we need to please Guruji, that we need to grow more in his love. No, his love was given to you the moment he saw you. The moment he saw you, he's given you everything. But the rest of the journey is just about remembering and uncovering that love that he has given us in that very first meeting. So in the same way, you don't need to be around Guruji all the time. You don't need to see Guruji every single day. Right? If you work towards finding him inside of you, you will have everything. We were just having a conversation. I was just having a conversation with Guruji yesterday. And he was telling us, he's like, you know, when I leave the body, all of you will really know who I am. Right now, what you perceive of me is a very limited version. I'm bound by my body. But when I leave, you will know me in a way that you've never known me. And so that goes to show that it's about finding him inside. When I went to New York, before that I had spent 8 years with him, almost every day, eating lunch and dinner. And as I was leaving, well, for a few things. First, I was like, Guruji, can you make it easy for me? Like, can you make it easy when I go to New York? And he's like, why should I make it easy? You see how hard it was for me to create this? You know how many years it took to build this place? How much sacrifice that required? You think it's going to be any easier for you? In reality, he was saying that externally, but it was actually much easier. Because his love is there. His grace is there. And afterwards, he said, now you have to find me inside of you. He said, now your journey begins with you finding me inside of you. And so in the same way, we see that Radharaman only spent a few days. And then he received everything, then he left, and he started to preach and sing the name of the Lord. Okay. Any questions? Following? If you have questions, you can ask. Somebody say something? When he met his guru, I believe he was in his 30s. It doesn't give the exact date, but he was in his 30s. He had already sort of finished his householder phase, and at this point, he was beginning his next phase in his journey. So, life after initiation. The amazing thing about the guru is that you have to realize, he was not initiated as a Swami. He was not wearing orange. Nobody knew who he was. He had just received the blessing, and then he started to go around the city of Navadvip singing the name of the Lord. But the amazing thing about gurus, the amazing thing about the lovers of God is that even if they're not wearing orange, even if they don't have 100 disciples around them, when you look at them, you recognize their greatness. It's the same thing with Guruji. I remember when I was with him in Italy, we were on a St. Francis pilgrimage. And when he's traveling there, he's not wearing robes. And it was just 2 or 3 of us. And we would go around, all around the area, looking at different churches. And we saw these 2 women following us everywhere. It's like, these people, are they stalking us? What's happening? And so they just, everywhere we went, they would follow us. And so finally, in the evening, when everything was done, we went to them. We're like, can we help you? Like, what are you doing? Why do you keep following us? And they're like, I'm so sorry. There's something about that man over there in the jeans. We have a feeling that we just want to touch his jeans. We just want to touch just the hem of his jeans. And we're like, are you crazy? They're like, there's so much love from him. And the girl says, I turned to my friend this morning and I said to her, let's go and meet God today. So we went to St. Francis, we went to his church, and then we saw you. And we could not stop following this person that you're with. So in the same way, a true lover of God, they don't need to be fancy. Just their presence, just their energy is enough to change our entire life. And in the same way, as Radharaman started to sing the name of the Lord, disciples started to come. People would come to him and they would refuse to go home. They would say, I'm just staying with you. Right? One of his disciples, his name was Navadvip Chandra Das. He had come with his family to Navadvip, and he saw Radharaman singing and dancing, and he told his family, I'm not coming back with you. I'm just staying with him. And we see that even in our own lives. How many of us would be on this path if it's not for Guruji? Very few, no? But when we're in the presence of somebody like him, then our whole life changes. It's not that we become monks and sannyasis, it's not that. But just our perception of the world changes. It's said that life, there's 2 parts. Before you meet your guru and after you meet your guru. And when after you meet your guru, you don't recognize your old life. That life is finished. I don't recognize myself. I was working in finance, doing those things in New York City. Now I'm a monk. Our whole life changes. So even if you're living in the world, you can clearly see that your life before and after your guru is not the same. And so in the same way, all of these devotees started to gather around Radharaman. And if you see his life, it's very, very, very similar to Guruji's life. Because where did Guruji come from? Mauritius. You think he came with 50 people singing, what do we sing when Guruji walks into darshan? Nah, you think that was happening as he was walking into Europe? No, he came by himself. He was just in his teens. He knew nobody. Imagine going from the island of Mauritius and you land up in Germany and France. It's tough, no? And through that, through his sheer love, he started to change the lives of all of those around him. And through that process, what we know of as Bhakti Marga has come. So in the same way, Radharaman, just by singing the name of the Lord, he started to gather disciples and devotees all around India. And they would go around and they would just sing the name of Hari. So, in the Gita, Krishna says, for some, the ignorance covering the self is destroyed by knowledge. This knowledge acts like the sun and reveals a higher reality. So we have to understand what Krishna means by knowledge. Knowledge is not something that you find on Google. It's not even actually what you read in the Gita. Knowledge is about what is the purpose of life, which is to love God. Nothing else. There's no other purpose with this life than to love God. And that's what the great saints do. They remind us of that knowledge, that ultimately it's only about love. And when we start to understand that, then our ignorance starts to fade away. So in the same way, this was the reminder of Radharaman. That's why his book is called The Life of Love. Because it's all about love. What's Guruji's motto? Just love. You see how they're very, very connected? Okay, so as he was going around singing the name of God, everybody would be attracted to him. Everybody would be drawn to him. But not just human beings, also animals. Animals would hear him sing and they would run to his feet. And there's an amazing story where Radharaman was his disciples and he was going around singing the name of Hari. And all of a sudden, a dog out of nowhere came and broke through the Sangha and started to be at the feet of Radharaman. And his owner started running after the dog and said, "What are you doing? Where are you going? Come back with me." And the dog refused to go. He would just stayed with Radharaman. They tried to pull him, push him, entice him with treats. Nothing worked. So Radharaman said, "Okay, let him stay, or let her stay." And the man agreed and said, "Okay, Babaji, you can take care of her." And so everywhere Radharaman would go, this dog would follow him. And every time they would sing, the dog would bark, "Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol." All the time, the dog would just be singing Hari Bol. And so it came that this dog came to be known as Bhakti Ma. That was the name of the dog. And over time, she became a great devotee. Right? What did Krishna say in the Gita? Anybody know the verse? I quiz you. About the dog? No? Say that? It says that the Brahmin, the dog eater, the dog, the warrior, all of this is the same in the eyes of the Lord. There's no difference between a dog and a dog eater. There's no difference between a Brahmin and a warrior. Everybody is equal in the eyes of God. And for God, all he cares about is your love for him. That's what makes you dear to him. He said, "I am present in the hearts of everybody, but those who love me, I am especially dear to." Right? So we become dear to the Lord when we become lovers of God. So this dog, Bhakti Ma, became a lover of God. So there came a time when the dog passed away. So everybody was sad. And Radharaman said, "You know what? Let's have a big festival for the dog. She was a great Vaishnava. Let's invite everybody and create a big celebration for her." So he told his disciples, "Go and invite all of the people." So the disciple went around. They went to all of the swamis, all of the spiritual leaders, and said, "We're having a big festival for this great Vaishnava. Please come." And the swamis are like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there." I said, "Who is this person?" And they said, "Oh, we know the Vaishnava is 20 years old, would always sing Hari Bol." And they're like, 20 years old? Tell us a little bit more. And the disciples were like, "Well, so her name was Bhakti Ma, and she was a dog." And the swamis are like, "You're inviting us to a festival for a dog? We have thousands of disciples. We give great teachings on the Bhagavad Gita. Imagine us being at a festival for a dog. What would people think? We're not coming." So the disciples went to Radharaman and says, "Guruji, nobody's coming. Nobody wants to come to a festival for a dog." And Radharaman says, "Okay, then invite the dogs. Go around all of the town of India and invite every dog to come for this festival." If you were the disciple, what would you say? Would you say, "Sure, I'll go"? You're like, "Guruji, are you sure?" Right? That's the first thing. Are you sure? You really want us to invite dogs? Do they speak English? How are they going to know the address? Where do they know how to go? What date? What time? Right? That's what our minds would be thinking, correct? And that's why the grace of the Guru does not flow freely in us. Because we limit his grace by our mind. The mind by nature is limited. If you try to understand grace, grace is unlimited. If you try to understand grace with your mind, what does that make grace? Limited. Never try to understand the grace of the Guru with the mind. And that's what he would always tell me for years and years and years. He would say, why are you always limiting my grace? Because for Guruji, he wants big temples. Right? He wants massive temples all around the world, thousands of people, millions of people. Even in the United States, when he said, create this temple, first thing Swami Tulsidas and myself were like, well, it's really big. Who's going to come? Then it was build a Narasimha that's 8 feet tall. How's he going to get through the door? Right? So we had to cut a hole in the roof and bring him down. But even the thought of that for the normal mind is, how is this possible? I'm not a big guy. I'm not going to be on a roof cutting and doing all of those things, right? We needed to find the right people to come climb up there. I'm not going up all the way up there. That's scary up there. So we had to find people to go and do these things. But when we have faith in God, when we have faith in his grace and his love, all things are possible. But it's just a matter of not limiting his grace with our own minds. So in this way, the disciples, they had no limitations. They said, Guruji, you want to invite dogs? Okay, let's go. So they would start going all around the villages of India, and they would go to the dogs, and they say, hello, nice to meet you. One of your family members has passed away. Her name is Bhakti Ma. We will have a festival for her. This is the address, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And then they would go on. Can you imagine how crazy this would look for the normal people? So like this, they went all around inviting all of these dogs. And then the time came for the festival to happen. So Radharaman was all with his disciples, and they're waiting anxiously. What's going to happen? Radharaman wasn't. What was he doing? Singing the name of God. He didn't care. All of his disciples were worried, but him, he was just singing the name of God. And then slowly, one by one, the dogs started to come. This happened only 100 years ago, and this is documented. You can hear about it. It's documented as the Festival of Dogs. And slowly, one by one, the dogs started to come. And in India, what would happen is that you would sit in a row, and then people would come and serve you food, right? So we all sit, and then you would serve the first appetizer, second, so forth. And as the dog sat, and the food was being served, not one dog ate from the plate till all the food was served. Even as humans, we can't do that, right? If we're hungry, after one or two, we're already eating before the rest of it is served. But the dogs did not touch one piece of food, and they waited till everything was served. Once everything was served and they were all in a line, then one of the main dogs ran across the hall singing Hari Bol, Hari Bol, and then afterwards all the dogs started to eat. They all start to take part in the prasad. So this is, you can see here, this is the Festival of Dogs. You can see, if you look very closely, they're all sitting there waiting. And this is Radharaman, and those are his disciples. So Radharaman was watching this, the disciples were watching this, and everybody was saying, this is a miracle. And then the word started to be given that this is happening. And all of these swamis, all of these spiritual leaders, they all started to run because they wanted to witness this great sight of the dogs. And Radharaman the whole time was in ecstasy. And once the dogs finished, they waited. Radharaman bowed to them. And he said, thank you all for coming. Thank you for venerating Bhakti Ma. And then after he bowed, all of the dogs got up and went on their way. And then all of their food was taken, put in a ball, and given to Radharaman. Radharaman took this food and he relished it. He ate it with so much love. And then he rolled on all of the dirty plates that the dogs were eating on. Right? Because these dogs were Vaishnavas. What does it mean to be a Vaishnava? What does it mean? To be a lover of God. The moment you are a lover of God, it does not matter if you're a plant, a dog, a human being, you are considered great. Because where does greatness come from? Right? In the world, we think greatness means that we become the president of the United States, we create a company, we do something like this. But do you think people will remember the 45th president of the United States in 500 years? You think anybody will remember Mark Zuckerberg in 1,000 years? No. Do you think people will remember kings? No. Everybody will be forgotten thousands of years from now. The only thing that makes us great is when we love God. God makes sure that our stories are never lost. He always incarnates into this reality and reminds us of his past incarnations and his past devotees. That's why you see with Guruji all the time, what is he doing? He's venerating the saints. It's so that we do not forget about them. We do not forget about their disciples. We do not forget about these acts of love. So, after all of this was happened, the night came, and there was one plate left. And Radharaman said, keep the plate for a little while. And so it was left, and then in the night, one dog comes. And one of the disciples looks at the dog, and he's shocked. And he said, Guruji, this is the first dog I went to. This is the first dog I said to invite everybody else. And so this dog, the entire day, has been going around inviting all of the dogs to come. And now that his seva is done, he has come now to take prasad. So in the same way as devotees of God, we should always remember that our natural disposition, our natural state is service. That's what makes us dear to the Lord. Do you think that we are dearer to God because we sit in the front row rather than the last row during Navaratri? Do you think God cares about that? No. He cares about how much you serve Him, how much you love Him. That's the only thing that really matters. So with that, that's the festival of the dogs. Nice story, huh? So this is the verse. The sages perceive with equal vision a good and learned brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. Any questions? No? How many dogs? Is that, who said that? How many dogs? Who knows? Who knows? That wasn't documented. But that's the point, no? When we hear stories of the Lord. There's two ways that you can hear stories of God and the saints. And it's very much similar to if you walk into a farm full of mangoes. So when you go into a farm full of mangoes, you take a mango and you eat it, right? You would think? You eat the mango and you enjoy the taste? Do you go to the farm and say, how many trees are there? What type of chemicals were used to plant it? What's the composition of the mango? No, you just enjoy the fruit. So in the same way, when we are hearing stories of the saints, of bhakti, enjoy the fruit and not so much analyze all of the minute parts of it. That's the best way to really relish the stories of God and His saints. So, now, this book is so good that I wanted to share a few conversations directly from Radharaman, because I would not do it justice. It's better to just hear what he has to say, and I think you'll enjoy it much more. So the next conversation happens when there was a priest. A Catholic priest came and visited Radharaman and said to him, "My God, he never does anything bad. He always does right things. He doesn't steal, he doesn't cheat, he doesn't cause adultery. But your God, Krishna, he lies, he cheats, he has multiple relationships. What type of God is this? Why would you worship such a God?" So this was the question presented to Radharaman by the priest. So let's see what he has to say. So the priest says, I'll explain it as we go, "May I know your religion?" And Babaji says, in a very general way, I would say that my religion is what you may know as the Hindu religion. But amongst the Hindus, there are 5 main different classes: Shaktas, Shaivites, Ganapatis, Sauryas, and Vaishnavas. I am a Vaishnava. So a Vaishnava is somebody who worships the avatars of Narayan. So Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, so forth. Okay. So the priest says, who do you worship? If you're a Vaishnava, who do you worship? And Babaji says, we worship Radha Krishna and Nitai Gaura. So Nitai Gaura was an incarnation of the Lord whose name was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He had come about 200 years before Babaji incarnated. Okay? So the priest says, the God you worship is a liar, a thief, and a killer. I said so much against your God and religion, but you were not angry. Instead, you showed signs of ecstatic joy and blissfulness. Why so? If you say anything against my religion or Christ, I would feel very unhappy. So the scene is set that when he first comes to Babaji, he says, your God is a liar, a thief. And Babaji does not react. He does not get angry. He does not get frustrated. He actually goes into ecstasy. It's said that he goes into a bliss as he starts to hear that Krishna is a thief and a liar. So the priest is shocked by this. So he's asking him, why are you like this? If you were to speak about Christ, I would get very angry. And so this is what Babaji replies. He says, our Bhagavan is not only Purna, perfect, but the Purnatma, which is perfection at its highest. Imperfection or any fault or vice cannot even touch him. What appears to you as his faults are his embellishments. What appears as his weakness or imperfections are the very sign of his perfection. Because he is essentially love, and whatever he does is an expression of his love. Love that is transcendental, pure, and selfless. And here we see that if God did not show those qualities, he would not be God. Because to be perfect also means that you must display some imperfections. So if you look at the Guruji, is he always sitting there in a perfect state? No, he's laughing, joking. Sometimes he might trip, or sometimes he might mix up his words. Right? This is to show how great he is. It's to show that within him is contained not only perfection, but also imperfection. And he goes on. And he says, in the Padma Purana, whatever I do in order to please my devotees, not for self-enjoyment. I have no freedom. I'm completely subjugated to my devotees. He is so much under his subjugation on account of their love that he can even lie or steal, or do anything that is generally looked upon as immoral to please them. This is why he is so sweet and attractive. He would not be perfect if he were not so. This verse is very important. Okay? The point where he says, he loves them so much that he will even lie or steal for them, or that he will do something generally looked upon as immoral just to please them. That's the beauty of God. That when he loves you, he will do anything for you. Whatever. The gopis, did they love Krishna? But were the gopis married? They were married. They had relationships. But because of their love, Krishna said, oh, who cares? Because of the love, I will be with you. Right? Now, don't think you're Krishna and you can start doing that, right? You have to get to a very high state before you can start speaking or talking or doing things in this way. But an enlightened being, they have no will of their own. They are subjugated to the will of their devotees. That is why when you see Guruji, you see him wearing nice watches, nice jewelry. Where do you think this comes from? You think he goes and buys them? No, it's given by the devotees. They give it out of a sign of love for him. And even though he knows people will be like, oh, why is he wearing this jewelry? Why is he wearing that? He does it just to please the devotees. So in the same way, when you have love for God and Guru, they will do whatever it takes to make you happy. Because their happiness comes from their devotees being happy. So this is the main point that Babaji is bringing across about God in Hinduism. Because the Western element of God is one of perfection. But our version of God is that he will do whatever to make us happy. How beautiful is that? So he continues the conversation. But Babaji says, but looked at from another point of view, the metaphysical point of view, however, he does not lie. When he actually seems to lie because he is the essence of truth and what he must say must be true. For instance, he seems to lie when after eating earth as a child, he says to his mother that he did not eat it. Actually, he does not lie because everything, including the earth, is already within him. Similarly, how can he steal anything when there's nothing that does not already and truly belong to him? So when he says to his mother, I did not steal food, Babaji is saying, the food was already his. He's the Lord. Everything in this world is his. So what can he steal? What can he take which is not already his? So then Babaji says, how can he be accused of seduction or adultery in his pastimes with the gopis, when there is not a single woman that does not already and truly belong to him, of whom he is not the supreme husband? Lying and stealing are only his prema lila or pastimes. So everything is about the relationship with God. And the deeper and deeper you go into that relationship, the more and more you have to let go of your own understandings of how that relationship should look like. That's when you can truly go deeper into that love. So the priest continues. I would like to know whether, according to you, God can be worshipped in some particular form or in any form that one may choose. So should God only be worshipped as one form or many forms? And Babaji says, God is infinite. He has infinite forms. All the things that exist are the various forms of God. There is difference only in the degree in which God is manifest in them. His incarnations, he is manifest more fully than in any other thing. Through the incarnations also, different in the degree in which he is particularly manifest in them. But all his incarnations are his forms. There is no difference between Krishna, Allah, Buddha, or Christ. For God, all religions are his religions. He favors all those who love him, irrespective of their caste and creed. This is amazing. Babaji says it doesn't matter who you worship. Krishna, Rama, Allah, Christ. If you love him, he will show himself in that way to you. And this is what we see with Guruji. Guruji is so open. There's not many gurus in the world that are so open. We celebrate Shiva, we celebrate the Divine Mother, we celebrate Krishna, Rama, Christ. Right? So for us, he's teaching us it's all about love. And that's what Babaji was also teaching us. So the priest says, I have no more doubts. I'm convinced that the Vaishnava religion is the highest religion. I've traveled so much and met so many saints, but no one has impressed me so much as you. I feel that after meeting you, I'm not only richer in my knowledge of Vaishnava religion, but also of religion as such. Right? This is the greatness of the Guru. This is the greatness of the lover of God, because they have the ability to bridge religions and traditions. They have the ability to bring people together. Look at us. Are we not from all around the world? So many different ethnicities, so many different traditions. But why are we all here? To experience love. He brings us together to experience love from all types of religions, all types of traditions. And that's what we see with Radharaman, is that he is constantly bringing people through love. So, we'll sing one bhajan, and then I'll continue. Everybody seems a bit tired. So one bhajan, we clap, sing, and then I'll share one more story, and then we'll begin, okay? You want to sing? So this is the mantra we're going to sing. This is the mantra that he gave to the world. And I'll explain it a little bit later, but you can just sing along.
Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram, Japa Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram, Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram, Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhajo Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram.
Govind, was it okay with the live stream? You're able to make it work. Okay. This mantra, Radharaman appeared to Guruji in 2013, and he said, please share this mantra with the world. So for many, many years, this was the main mantra of Bhakti Marga. We'd always be singing this specific mantra before Vittala Giridhari Parabrahmane Namaha. The change, because the mantra for Vittala Giridhari came during COVID. And it said that Krishna himself appeared and said, now, from now on, please start chanting this mantra. And so this mantra was then given by Krishna. And then Guruji said, okay, we change now to this mantra. Okay, so Radharaman would travel around India, constantly singing the name of God. And he came across a village where there was a very sacred tree. It was a banyan tree. And he found out that this banyan tree was about to get cut by another religious group in that area. And so they were going to cut down this tree because they felt that this tree, they needed to move it to build some building or something like this. But it was a very, very sacred site for the Hindus. And so they all went to Babaji and said, Babaji, please, you have to do something. Now, please help us to make sure that this tree doesn't get cut. So Babaji says, okay, who is the one that is responsible for cutting this tree down? And they said, oh, it's this man. He doesn't believe in the Hindu religion. He hates everything that we're doing. He will never agree. And he's very rich. And he lives behind a wall in a palace, in a large building. And so Babaji says, take me to him. So they all start going to this place where there's a wall and there's a palace. And Babaji and his disciples start singing Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam in front of the wall. And they just sing for hours and hours and hours. And the man inside is like, what is happening? So he comes down to check. And he opens the gate. And the moment he opens the gate, Babaji turns very strict. He looks at him, he points and said, "Sing." And the man's like, what are you talking about? He said, "Sing." And he's like, who is this? Who are these people? "Sing." And he's like, "Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram." Sing. "Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram." Sing. And he starts singing this mantra. And all of his disciples surround this man. And they all start singing, "Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam." And as he starts singing, and as his disciples surround him, tears start to flow from his eyes. And he is overcome with ecstasy. And Babaji keeps telling, every time he wants to stop, he keeps saying, "Sing, sing, sing, sing the name of God, sing the name of God." And at this point, in this trance, Babaji said, "Follow me." And so like a train, they all went to this tree. And in front of the tree, they started to sing, "Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam." And it was so much energy, so much force, so much bhakti. It said that the tree itself started to dance. The leaves started to shake. The trunk started to shake. And it started to dance as the Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam mantra was being chanted. And then it finally got to a point after hours and hours of chanting, Babaji looks at the man and he says, "Your job is to make sure this tree will never get cut." And the man says, "I will make it my life's mission to make sure that nobody touches this tree." And so in this way, we see the power of a lover of God. People ask, "Oh, Guruji, he has so many miracles. You know, he does rings and this and that. Wow, it's so cool." But people don't understand. That's just the show. It's for people's minds. But if you really look deeper, the miracles that he is performing is how he transforms all of us. That is the true miracle. If you look at your own life, think about how much you have transformed being around him, doing his practices. That to transform a human being to be a lover of God, how difficult is that? And he's done that for thousands and thousands of people. A simple person can't do that. You think a simple person can change thousands of people to love God? That is his greatness. And that is the greatness of Radharaman and this particular story. That just by his pure Shakti and energy, he was able to completely change and transform the heart of this person. And so in this way, everybody left, and the news came that this tree was dancing. And everybody was like, "This can't be true. There's no way a tree can dance." So they all came to Babaji and they started to say, "You're doing some type of black magic. You're doing something that's not correct." So Babaji says, "Okay, if you think that's the case, tomorrow, bring your scientists, bring all of the people, and let's see what happens." So the next day, all of the scientists, all of the people came, and they started bhajan, and the tree started to dance again. And they said, "Can we go up there? Can we send boys up there to make sure nobody's there doing anything?" He said, "Go." So they sent people up there to look in the trees to see if people were shaking it. Nothing. And like this, for 7 days, he came, he performed kirtan, and the tree danced. Once again, this is recorded. So the power of Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam was able to transform the heart of this person and was also able to make this tree dance for 7 straight days. So like this, because we don't have so much time, there's so many stories of Radharaman. So many amazing miracles that he did. So if you really want to learn about his life, I would definitely keep recommending you to read the life of love. Yeah. So one more really nice story about the power of the Guru. And I will just read the transcript. If you want, you can take a picture, or maybe they get a copy of the slide, I don't know, because then you'll be able to see the transcript of the conversation. But before that, we'll just quickly, where are we? Yeah, okay. So I wanted to match a Gita verse with every sort of Leela that Radharaman performed. And so for me, the dancing of the trees was a really nice example for the verse 40, chapter 4, where Krishna says, for the ignorant, the faithless, and the skeptical, there's only destruction. The doubting person does not belong to this world or the next and will never find happiness. So here, for most of us in this world, we're so much in our minds. We're so much into the analytics of things that everything that we do, we question and doubt. And there's nothing in this world that can break that doubt except for the grace of the Guru. When he comes into our life and he presents us with that pure love, we have no choice but to just get on our knees and venerate the divine. But to break that doubt, to break that analytical mind, that can only be done through the grace of a true Guru, the grace of a lover of God. Any questions so far? Yes. You're asking about the mangoes? How many mango trees there are? No. Just kidding. The priest. Mm-hmm. Mm. Buddha. Mm-hmm. So, like Krishna is an actual person, Christ is an actual person. Allah is not a person. So for me, it's more like disambiguation with Islam. There's Muhammad. Yeah. Right? But in Islam, there's like they don't consider Muhammad like an avatar. Yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm yeah. Because for Islam, Allah is Sure, sure. Yeah, I get it. So I would just say it's more semantics because he's just giving some examples. And so for him, he's just giving the example that actually all paths lead to the same truth. That's more the example. I would not take it literally that he was talking about a form of God. He was just saying all of these different religions, categorized by the word that we use to define that religion, can lead us to God. That's more the way that you can approach it. Because you're right, that has to do with a more philosophical understanding. And you can learn about that in the Bhakti Academy philosophy classes. So, Radharaman took Samadhi in 1905. So he lived for approximately 50 years. And his body is located at Navadvip, India. And it is said that his body resides underneath this life-like statue that has been made for him. And so this is one of the places that Guruji visits often. He's been there a few times actually over the last few years. And it's a very beautiful place, and they're always singing the mantra Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam. And there you can also buy the book Life of Love. So if you ever make it out there, it's very difficult to get there. But if you can, then it's a very, very, very beautiful place. So I want to leave you with one conversation that happened between Radharaman and somebody that came and visited him. But before we get to that, what was the theme of this entire talk so far? Love, right? Thank you. I'm happy somebody said it. If they didn't, I'd be like, oh, maybe I didn't do a good job. If one person said it, I'm happy. So the theme is love. How do we get love? We talk about love, to be lovers of God. By giving it, okay. But to give it, you must have it. How do you awaken it? Grace. Somebody who said grace? Grace? So you can be a lover of God through grace, right? How to get that grace? Service? Okay. So let's see what Radharaman has to say. So a question was proposed to him. And the man asked, Babaji, what is the easiest way of attaining the Lord? What is the easiest way to become a lover of God? And Radharaman says, for the people of this age, there was no way except through the grace of the Lord. It said the easiest way of attaining the Lord is through the grace of the Lord. So then the natural question that comes is, how do we attain grace? So Radharaman says, the only means for attaining grace is grace. The Lord does whatever grace makes him do. He goes and blesses the people to whom grace takes him. Like a doll pulled by a string, without for a moment judging him by caste or creed, learning or ignorance, virtue or vice. So he said, once you have the grace of God, you have everything. But to attain grace, you must have grace. So it's confusing, right?
No, it makes so much sense.
Oh, good. Does grace disappear? Grace never disappears. Grace is always there. Our perception of if we have it or not can vary. So when we're going through a lot of mind turmoil, negativity, we forget about the grace that's always been with us. If we understood the grace of God and Guru, if we understood what we have, we would actually never be sad. We would never be stressed. We would never be angry. It's just a misunderstanding of forgetting that which we already have. As I was sharing yesterday, the grace to be here with Guruji for 9 days, celebrating the Divine Mother. Unreal, unfathomable. Right? I see, and I was the same way. When I used to live here, I would always be kind of in a bad mood. Because it's true, being here, the ego is always getting crushed, right? It's always getting squeezed, if you will. So it's hard to be in a good mood. But once I left here and I was in the United States, I realized, wow, how much grace, well, I always have grace, but how amazing was it to be there? How amazing was it to spend this time with Guruji in person? And for me now, when I'm here, it's almost a sin to not smile, right? Because we get so caught up in all of these trivial things. You know, we'll say like, oh, this person looked at me this way. This person took my seat. This person pushed me. They cut me in line during food. This person lied to me. Who cares? No, seriously, like, who cares? In the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. No, all that matters is love. But we get so caught up in the drama of this reality, we forget that. The thing is, we have grace. The grace is there. So let's see what he has to say. So the man says, if grace is causeless, it should flow towards the virtuous and the vicious alike. So he says, essentially, if grace is flowing to everybody, then should it not flow to the people outside, to the devotees? Should grace not be equally distributed to everybody? So Radharaman says, true, but one should at least have a longing or greed for grace. A physician wants to give medicine to a patient out of mercy, but he knows that the patient does not feel any need for it and is likely to throw it away. Will he give? So here, although Guruji has given us the grace the moment we met him, it takes some time for us to awaken into that grace. And so here he's saying that that grace is there for everybody. For the people outside, for here, everybody. But we should long, we should have that greed to attain the grace of God, to feel the grace of Guruji. Right? We all have it, but how many of us have that longing and that greed to feel His grace all of the time? Do you have it? Some of you? That's good. You have to have that greed. So let's see what the man says. I follow that one should have greed or intense longing for grace in order to attain grace. But how to get that intense longing? How to have that greed for God? How to have that longing for God? It's not easy, no? We get so caught up in the things of the world. We caught up in the ups and downs and the obstacles, and we forget about that real reason why we're here. So he's asking, how do I develop this greed or longing for grace? And Babaji says, a man by his nature is greedy. He is unhappy because he has out of ignorance made the things of this world the object of his greed. He has only to divert his greed towards the Lord and His grace. So here he's saying, by nature we are greedy as humans. Are we greedy? I know sometimes when I see that chocolate cake, I eat one too many. If I have sweets, I might eat one too many. So like that, greed is actually something in us. By nature, we have that greed already. So Babaji is saying, instead of being greedy for things of the world, divert it, change it to being greedy for God. That's all that has to happen. And if you look at Guruji and what he does with our life, that's what he's doing. He's making us long for God more and more and more. Right? What does he do? Yeah, okay, when I first meet him, I chant a mantra. Right? Then I take some kriya. Then I start coming to Navaratri. Next thing you know, I'm looking into buying a murti. Next thing you know, I bought the murti. Then I'm buying clothes for the murti. I'm buying jewelry for the murti. I'm doing puja every day to the murti. Then I'm doing abhishekam to the murti. Then I'm carrying the murti everywhere I go. Then I can't stop talking about the murti. So you see how slowly he develops this longing for God in us by just shifting our perception from the world towards God. We start before, I like to go to Navaratri, but maybe I'll go to Bali. Maybe I'll go somewhere warm. It's too cold. After a few years, the thought of going somewhere other than Navaratri is absurd. Right? There's nowhere I'd rather be than Navaratri. So our whole perception and reality changes the more and more and more we spend time with Guruji. Because of his love, out of his intensity, he transforms us. So here he's saying, take that greed of the world and turn it towards God. The man says, but is this not difficult to do? The world's objects are within our reach. We see them, we feel attracted, but we do not feel so attracted to God. It is difficult to develop greed for a thing which does not attract. So he's saying, I'm greedy for chocolate cake because when I eat it, it tastes good, right? I have an immediate impact, immediate pleasure. But just by looking at God, by chanting His name, I don't get that immediate feedback initially. On the path when you first came, if you were chanting Om Namo Narayanaya or you were looking at Krishna or the Divine Mother, you're not going to feel much, right? So it's hard to be greedy and long for God. It's easier to be greedy and long for chocolate cake or ice cream. So he says, because it's so difficult, how do we develop this greed and longing for God? Radharaman says, attraction for the Lord and His grace can be developed if one has the grace of a master who has himself been blessed by the grace of God. Company of such a person by itself generates attraction to the Lord. And this is the secret that many people don't want to talk about. If you want to develop love for God, spend as much time as you can around Guruji. It's the easiest and simplest way. Many people have chanted the Bhagavad Gita left and right, memorized it, chant the names of God 100 rounds per day. When I was in New York City, this Swami came to me because he found out that I was moving there from a different lineage. And he looks at me and says, you know, I've been in New York City for 20 years. And I have found that the only way to stay above Maya is you have to chant the Maha Mantra 64 rounds a day. So that's the only way that Maya will not get you. You have to chant this mantra 64 rounds a day in New York City. You think I chanted 64 rounds? Am I still here? So for me, it was not about chanting 64 rounds of the mantra. It was just about connecting to Guruji in whatever way that I can. Every single day, I would watch 15 minutes of his satsang. I would do the mantra, the Guru mantra he gave me, and I would do my puja. I didn't have to do 64 rounds. I didn't have to do crazy things. I just needed to figure out a way to stay in tune with Guruji. So here when Radharaman says, be in the company of the Lord, or be in the company of a person who is attracted to God, he's not talking just physical. You always have to train your mind to connect with Guruji no matter where you are in the world. Listen to his satsang. Do Vittala Giridhari Parabrahmane Namaha. Do your puja. Figure out some way to stay connected to him. Because being in his energy is what transforms us so our greed turns towards God. Because if that's not the case, then it's very difficult. And this is not something abstract I'm sharing with you. Because I spent many years in New York City after being a monk. I can understand the attraction of the world. It's not easy. The world always attracts us with money, power, fame, lust, many things. And it's so easy to turn our longing and greed from Guruji to the world. So many times in my mind, I was like, oh, what am I doing here in New York? Because at the time, I was staying at a very small room. And I had just come there. And of course, when you live in the ashram, you're not getting paid. It's not that you're getting money or any of these things, right? And so when I went to New York, I had nothing. But there was this one lady who said, you can come and stay with me. I'll sponsor you. And she had heard me speak in Egypt or somewhere along these lines. And I said, okay, I'll come and stay there. So I was staying there. And after some time of doing talks and events, we started to get some donations, started to build a community. And then I was able to move to my own place in New York City. But of course, it was an apartment with 4 rooms. So I was sharing one apartment with 4 other people. And at the time I was a rishi, so nobody knew that I was a rishi or a monk. And that apartment, meat, alcohol, marijuana, everything. And also the walls, super thin. So, I'll let you imagine what I mean by that. So I was living like this, and at the time also I couldn't cook. I still can't cook, but at that time I couldn't cook. So I was like, how do I eat? So I would just buy some cereal and banana, and I would just eat morning, lunch, and dinner, cereal and banana every day. And at this time, Rishi Radhika called me, and he says, how's it going in New York? How's life? And I was like, yeah, it's good, grace of God, everything's good. I said, but I wish I was eating something other than rice or cereal. Maybe there's something else there. And then I say this and say, okay, I have to go, and I hang up. The moment I hang up, I heard. And I open it, and it's a woman. And she says to me, I just moved here from Texas, and I'm sorry, the walls are thin. I don't mean to be rude, but I heard that all you're eating is rice and cereal. So I was wondering, can I cook some food for you? Knew nothing about our tradition. And of course, in our tradition, to feed a sannyasi is one of the greatest blessings you can have. And so I looked at her, I said, well, I don't eat meat. She's like, oh, well, okay, I can cook some rice and lentils for you. And I was like, okay. So we went, she cooked me some food. And then I said, I don't have anything, but I have this mantra that I can teach you. And I could teach you the Gita. And she's like, what is a mantra? What is the Gita? And I was like, don't worry about any of this. Like, do you want to learn? And she's like, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in all of this. I'm an atheist. I'm not into this. I said, but just give it a shot. You cook and I'll teach you. She said, okay. So for the next 40 days, she would cook for me. And then we would chant and I would teach her the Gita. And over those 40 days, she became vegetarian. She started to chant every day by herself. She started to read Just Love book, Autobiography of a Yogi, started going to Om chantings, stopped drinking. She's visiting the ashram in Elmira now. So like that, everything changed. Right? But we have to have this understanding that all of this transformation and change is happening through the grace of the Guru. If we stay connected to him, miracles will happen in our lives all of the time. The dancing of the trees, the festival of the dogs, that's not a reality that is outside of you. Because the amazing thing is, just like Radharaman existed 150 years ago, that same personality exists now. And all of his disciples were able to experience those leelas. In the same way, you can experience all of those leelas. You can experience the love, but you have to spend time connecting to the energy of Guruji. So the man says, so it means the grace of a master who has realized God is the main sadhana, spiritual practice for attainment of God. So he said, so the grace of the Guru is the only way. And Radharaman says, yes, without the grace of the master, nothing is possible. Grace is the beginning and grace is the end. So if you want to love God, if you want the easiest way of realizing God, seek to attain the grace of Guruji. And the best way to attain his grace is to do your seva and do your sadhana with love. Okay, let's not say with love, without drama. Can we do that? Without love is a far reach. Let's just try to remove the drama. If you can do that, you're already moving towards the grace. So with that, the mantra. This mantra encapsulates everything that we just spoke about. So, Bhajo Nitai Gora. Nitai Gora is the Guru element. Radhe Shyam, that is the goal. Radhe Shyam is bhakti. So through Nitai Gaur, through the Guru, we attain love for Krishna. And the way that we do that is by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, or any Hari Nam mantra. So through the grace of Nitai Gaur or Guru, we attain Radhe Shyam or bhakti by chanting the name of God. That is the essence of this mantra. So that's his life. That's his story. I hope you enjoyed hearing about him. Any questions about Radharaman? No. It was a mantra that was revealed to him in the same way the Vittala Giridhari mantra was revealed to Guruji. Because you have to realize that the Guru, the Sadguru, the avatar, comes for a specific purpose and mission. That mission is twofold. One is things that he can achieve in his body, and there are things that happens in his spiritual body. So there are certain things he needed to bring across in his physical body. He needed to give the mantra. He needed to set an example of how to be a lover of God. And then once those things were done, he still exists, but in his spiritual body. In his spiritual body, he can reach his devotees. He can bless those who connect to him in a much wider way. That's why I shared earlier how Guruji said, when I leave my body, you will know me much better than you do now. When I leave my body, that's when my mission will get much bigger. And it's the same thing that happened with Christ. Right? So don't look at it as the physical body is the only reality. It's just one reality of a master. Any other questions? You want to sing it again? But okay, if we're going to sing it again, we're going to have to dance. So that means we have to go around this circle as we're singing the bhajan. You're going to do that? Okay, let's do it. Yes. The what? A relic, yes. There's a relic of Radharaman in the temple. Yes, yeah, definitely get his grace. The lecture's finished. Yeah. Om Shanti 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 Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.